hey, giving you the like, hello, how you doing? It's a Canadian thing if you don't know. If they're like, hey, hello, how you doing? So, yeah, the first thing that I had wanted to take a look at is, first of all, this iDubbbz situation, MoistCr1TiKaL's reaction to the iDubbbz situation, and then the fact that people are super mad at MoistCr1TiKaL for his reaction to the iDubbbz situation. So, I gotta check this whole thing out. I'm actually only learning about the iDubbbz situation myself, so we're gonna watch MoistCr1TiKaL's first response to iDubbbz personal response video. So this is going to be a whole thing. We're all going to find out about it. But if you don't know who iDubbbz is, and this is why I'm interested. But check it out. Known online as iDubbbz, American YouTube personality. This is Content Cop. If you've ever seen Content Cop, bad unboxing, or Kickstarter crap, but that's the one. Immediately that jumped out. I'm like, wait a minute, Content Cop, what's going on? We got what's going on with him? What's he been doing? What? So I'm kind of interested there. I figured we'd check this stuff out. Just because these are two big people. Like, I know Ryan absolutely loves our friend here, MoistCr1TiKaL. And iDubbbz, like I said, Content Cop, I was shocked that there's some sort of controversy going on here. So, yeah, iDubbbz, like I said, if you don't know, Content Cop, bad unboxing, Kickstarter crap, numerous collaborations, etc., etc. He even had that song in 2017, so let's see what Moist has to say about his video here, and we're going to be checking that out. And then at the same time, we're going to be kind of hearing about this iDubbbz situation, and then we'll see about why this opinion he's about to express is such an L take.
Yesterday, iDubbbz posted a YouTube video that's become extremely divisive. I haven't seen people this divided on a singular topic since the red and blue dress debate. The video he posted was basically...
Oh, jeez. The red and blue dress debate. Do you guys remember that crap? And it was actually gold and blue. I don't think it was red and blue unless that's a different one. But I remember the gold and blue dress debate, and oh my god.
An apology for the content he made in the past, apologizing for it being hurtful or damaging, and a whole myriad of other things that he wanted to come forward with, and talking about how he's changed as a person and thus his content will be changing. He goes over like insecurities of his past. And overall, he just invites the audience into the back of the kitchen to see how the sausage is made and meet the chef.
I love the way this guy talks sometimes. Show you how the sausage is made and meet the chef. Like, come on. You, like, really? Okay. Anyway, so it looks like iDubbbz is feeling like some of his content hurt people's feelings and he's apologizing for it.
And
all right.
A lot of people, they didn't want to meet the chef. He's being very open and honest about his feelings on his older self and now his current mentality.
Oh,
he feels better and healthier.
I get it.
Doesn't like what he did in the past and didn't like who he used to be.
So he grew up. So he grew up is the thing. He's like, yo, I'm looking at my older videos and I was a douchebag. If you've seen some of those videos, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with him. And hey, it's his own personal take, right?
Apology video for all of that. He releases more feelings in this video than Pandora's box, and I kind of want to go over this whole situation because I have a lot of thoughts on the topic, not only as it pertains to iDubbbz in particular, but just in the general creator space.
Yeah, no, for real. There's so many people who just like, they get called out for their old bad behavior, and then they're like, oh, but I'm so different, I've changed. It's like, well, then why are the videos still up, bro? You're still making money off those videos. Like, here's a fair thing to say. If you're still leaving your videos live and monetizing them, but pretending like you feel bad about the content in them, you're probably lying.
There's a few things that I want to talk about here.
For a while, I felt like if I...
Man, look at him right now. Holy crap. He looks like Post Malone or something these days. Oh, I remember him looking way more clean cut.
Changed my content over time, that people would see that as a reflection of who I am and what I value. But I'm starting to realize that that is a very weak and passive way to, you know, run my channel and live my life.
I'm sorry to immediately come in here with the Phoenix Wright objection, but I completely disagree with the sentiment that it's weak or passive to change your content and expect people to see that as a reflection of yourself. That's pretty much the optimal way of handling any kind of situation in which you're not comfortable with either your audience or the content you've been making. By changing the content over time, you're changing the audience over time as well.
Well, yeah, no, that's a fair argument there. It is a fair argument that you are changing your audience, but it's also a fair argument to say that your audience would grow with you, right? Like, just because everyone who starts watching one type of your content or video is that type of viewer, that doesn't necessarily mean that they won't enjoy you growing and doing other stuff as well, and then thusly become interested in that stuff themselves, or grow in those directions, or see how you're growing and then take it as a way to not be and grow in their own direction, depending on how you're going.
Well, obviously, right? The people that subscribed for your previous catalog of content might not stick around for the stuff you start creating when it goes in a different direction, and that's a totally fine thing. I
Yeah,
don't think
and
there's
that's true.
anything weak about just making different content and growing individually without having to come forward and share that growth with your audience. At the end of the day, your subscribers aren't your friends. You don't know them and they don't know you. That's the brass tacks of it.
Okay.
Sorry to blast.
Well, I mean, like, sometimes they do a bit, but that's that whole parasocial thing everyone's always talking about. So, I mean, I get what he's saying. They're not like your actual real life best friends or anything, certainly.
The cold water in your face first thing in the morning. You don't owe them an explanation for why you're changing your content.
Oh, so his argument is that you don't need to tell people when you change your content. You don't need to say anything about it. You can just do it. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of people would want to say something just as a sign of respect to their old viewers. Like, heads up, I love you, and if you don't watch my new stuff, I get it, but this is the direction we're going, and here's why. I mean, that's a fair thing to say. Oh, you don't owe an explanation. Well, I mean, I'm going to argue that if I was watching a TV show about G.I. Joes and I was really enjoying how it was a TV show about G.I. Joes, and then the next time I logged in it was Friends, I would have a fair argument that this is some BS and that this show should continue to be about G.I. Joes, right?
Welcome to tell them. I think that's totally within your right to do, but I really disagree that it's weak if you don't explain why you're changing your content. You can just make different stuff and go in that direction where you're happier without ever really needing to come forward and like really lecture on why.
I think I should.
But a lot of people want to know why, so why not do it? It's content.
To make an apology video and take accountability for the mistakes I've made. So that's what this video is. I am responsible for creating a lot of hurtful and damaging content on this channel. And I've also created a culture of apathy.
Be nice if he names some of the content that he means.
Like, cruelty as well. Like, you know, some of the videos I've made have been very, not edgy. I don't think they you know, some of these videos were edgy. I think they were just outright cruel.
It sucks to hear that this is how he thinks about his old content and his old self. It's always a very difficult realization when you look back on, you know, the you of a few years ago disappointed. Like, I used to be 5'6", and I still am, but it sucks to realize that I was then too, and have.
Yeah, well, okay, so you're short. Sorry, Moist. I do understand what iDubbbz is saying there. He's looking back and he's not liking who he was, but I mean, argumentatively, just in his own defense too, his content was on YouTube and monetized, so clearly it wasn't against TOS in a way that was really damaging, but I mean, like, this is what I said. I would like to know almost video per video, or like the people he's talking about who he feels he damaged. I'd like to hear about that, just to know, like, prospectively, what do you actually think you did? You know, who do you think you actually damaged? That's a good question, right? Like, certainly good. Feel bad if you did damage somebody. We all want that. You got to grow. But what are you talking about, man?
Been for a long time. Point is, he wasn't happy with the content he made or the person he was, and now he's trying to apologize for the videos he made. And I, once again, have to completely disagree with the way he looks at it. I feel like his perspective on it is very warped by the way the internet has evolved over the years. The way he talks
we're
about
going
his
here.
content makes
We're
it
going
sound
here.
like he used to fucking murder puppies for these videos. which it was never that extreme.
No, exactly. I had mentioned content cop earlier, and it was certainly not that. I'm laughing because I'm like, I know some of iDubbbz videos, and I'm just like, yeah, it certainly was not murdering puppies in any way, shape, or form.
I very much would consider it edgy. It was 2016 edginess in all of its
Yeah, sure. He's an edgelord
That
streamer.
was entirely
Or
the brand.
tuber.
And for its time, it lived peacefully. You know, all four nations, water, earth, fire, air, lived together in harmony with all this edginess going on. Now, obviously, times have changed, and he has changed. He's gotten older. He's in his 30s now. In your 30s, it's not exactly entertaining to just be spamming slurs for shock humor.
And fair. And I don't remember that specific piece of content if he was literally spamming swears for content. Also, love the face, Moist.
I don't find that entertaining, and he doesn't.
Yeah, no, it's
It's
not.
totally fine to want to distance yourself from making content like that. But
Well, if that was content, I haven't seen that, and I mean, Moist is usually fairly well informed, so we'll say that that did happen at one point. And it was probably for shock value, but I would not defend that, and that's definitely not quality content. No way.
I don't think it was a mistake that he made those videos. Like, they're not hurtful, nor do I really think they're damaging. Now, you could make an argument that they were hurtful to the people they were about, like the content cop on Tana or Leafy or any of that. You could say, like, you know, he hurt their feelings or sent harassment their way, which may have been a mental burden on them, and you could feel bad about that, I suppose. But at the end of the day, I don't think the goal of his content was ever to be hurtful or damaging. He was just
No,
trying to
exactly.
entertain and using edginess as
Yeah, this is exactly what I remember. Like, it was shock value stuff, like, get people's attention in a way like, oh, do I have your attention yet? You know? Like, cheeky. And maybe a little bit going far in the cheekiness, I do remember that. But, like, I didn't ever think any of it was, like, bad, per se. It was just like, oh, man. That kind of stuff.
shock humor, which for its time was acceptable
Yeah.
online. Now, whether or not you think that's okay that it was ever acceptable, that's a different argument for a different day. But the
That is exactly the same truth there. That doesn't really matter one way or the other. It was acceptable. It wasn't against TOS at the time, so it's hard to make that argument now. Oh, it's bad because TOS might not allow it now. It's like, yeah, well, I mean, if he read the guidelines back then, it didn't say it was bad, so what's he supposed to say? Oh, he should have known better? Well, it's not like he was the only person doing it, too, so calm that.
point is, the point of his content wasn't to be hateful
Exactly.
or hurtful. He really was just trying to entertain. At least that's how I and the majority of people viewed it. So I just don't...
Okay, yeah, and that's what I would say. That's how I and the majority of people viewed it. Now, I'm still on iDubbbz's side that he can completely apologize.
Say that again, I liked it.
Ah, username, how you doing? Now, I'm still on iDubbbz's side. Like, you're allowed to apologize for your old content and feel bad about it and feel like you're moving past it. So I'm still with iDubbbz on this, that putting out a video saying, oh, yeah, well, this is the reason that I've changed. And this is why we're changing and how I feel about my old content. That's fair to do, especially for your viewers. I mean, yeah, they're not your friends, but you're allowed to explain yourself. And I mean, it's not weak.
think that the apology is really warranted. You can explain, like, I just don't like making that content anymore, so I won't. And be like, hey, I even regret making that content because it's kind of cringe now.
That's what I
all
just
fine,
said.
But to think that it is this huge, massive problem, like you made an unforgivable mistake, is a little weird to me.
So I don't want people to, get it confused about, where I stand. I have made some cruel, hurtful content, and I need to acknowledge that, and I'm really sorry that it's taken me this long to acknowledge it.
All right, so he's saying that it was cruel and hurtful. I mean, he's not named the stuff that Moist named there. So I'd still like to hear what he, like, this guy, iDubbbz, specifically thinks that he did that was cruel and hurtful. I would love to hear that part, just so I could, like, have a full, proper concept of maybe exact videos and stuff. And again, are they still posted? Are they still monetized? Fair question, right? Like, fair question?
Content I'm talking about specifically are content cop videos.
Okay.
And videos where I was just generally criticizing
How funny is this? I asked for it and he starts saying it. Okay.
people for very lackluster reasons, and obviously didn't have any accountability online.
Yeah, okay, he was going for the throat on people for no reason because it was funny. I remember that. He was like a bulldog, like content cop. Exactly, like, your content no good, here I come, right?
Whatsoever on my end.
You shouldn't have to apologize for criticizing someone or something. Voicing your opinion on a subject is a totally natural thing to do. I get criticized, I criticize others, people criticize movies,
Which is exactly what I'm doing right now.
games, music, all of that. And to try and vilify the idea of criticism being evil, I think is a little dangerous, because then you just create these echo chambers and no one ever really grows from that. I think it's totally fine if you regret the way you criticize things, the way you approach the subjects. If you
So I'm struggling to see how this is an L take so far from Moist. We're about 7 minutes into this, and I mean, in general, he's being pretty rational about this. I would argue that you have every right in the world to apologize for anything you want to apologize for if you feel bad for it. I'm a Canadian. So, like, it's not even a joke. Here in Canada, people apologize so much that we have it on the law books that apologizing to somebody for something is not a legal admission of guilt. That's not the same in other countries, but like here, if you get into a car accident with somebody, you get out and you're running, oh my god, I'm so sorry, but they rear-ended you. You have not told the world that it was your fault. And the same goes for a lot of stuff. You bump into somebody because they were running down the hall and they fall down and hit the ground and break their arm, and you're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. You didn't say it was your fault here. You're allowed to apologize because you feel bad. That's human. That's fine. So if Moist is going to get up like, oh, you shouldn't apologize or whatever, like, iDubbbz, you can apologize for stuff if you feel bad about it. And I mean, if you were spamming slurs, you ought to feel bad about it. That part, anyway.
regret how you handled it, that's okay. However, I wouldn't necessarily say that you were picking apart people for lackluster things. You seem to really look back negatively on all of the content cops, but whether you like it or not, you did make good points and good arguments against people who did deserve criticism.
I laughed at content cop stuff. That's the thing I was pointing out that I knew iDubbbz from. I laughed. I laughed at content cop stuff. I did it.
I feel like the main pain point of those videos he used to make is the slurs in them. Like, his catchphrase was 2 slurs strung together, right? Like, that's not exactly something to be super proud of.
No, and that's where we were talking about it being the shocking stuff. That it was like a, oh my goodness, kind of giggle and like cover your mouth kind of laughing. Like, this wasn't the kind of stuff that you'd wear a t-shirt and be like, I'm the world's biggest fan, but it was cheeky. But I do see it, reviewing it that way for real. Yeah, I understand it.
But to go back and say, like, all of it's shit, all of it's, bad and cruel.
No, but I think he's saying now, actually, the reality is it was coming from a bad place, and iDubbbz as a creator, he would know better than us. He would know better than us where his content was coming from, you know what I mean? Like, where his heart was, where his mind was when he was creating this stuff. He would have a better view of it than you do, Moist. And that's where I'm going to start to diverge here, where you don't get to say how iDubbbz was thinking at the time that he made that, and you don't get to say how he was thinking right now is the problem. And if he was thinking in a really nasty way back then, and he's now thinking differently, and he's looking at where his mind was, and then he looks at his content and sees the reflection of where his mind was, I can really understand him apologizing for that, being like, I was putting that part of me out there for you, and you all were consuming it, and now I feel bad about that because it was poison, I could understand that.
Is going way overboard, because it's not.
Is he?
I don't think any of it was cruel. I don't think the criticism was unwarranted, but it's fine to just regret the way you handled it to a certain extent without saying...
Yeah. So you're not looking at it from where iDubbbz is coming from, where it's coming from inside of him now. I see.
Was damaging or cruel or bad.
I was morally grandstanding and acting as if I am any better than any of these people that I was making content cop videos on.
Here we go.
And I'm not. I'm a human. I'm a real human who makes mistakes. And, I make a different set of mistakes than the people I was making videos on. But it doesn't matter. I don't think anyone deserves that level of cruelty or hate. It's also indoctrinated a lot of people into thinking that this is an okay way to behave.
That's exactly what I just said. Yep, he feels bad about sharing that part of himself and getting it out there and making people think that way. That's, yeah, okay. He's seeing where he was inside of his own head, inside of his own heart. That's what it is. And he knows it was poison. That's where it's coming from. And you got to respect, he said, I put poison out and I don't want to do that anymore.
And it's not.
I feel like there's a chance he may have been hit by a Men in Black neuralizer and
No.
had his memories rewritten of what that content actually was.
No, man, you that's what it is. You're not seeing it from his perspective, seeing it where the creator knows his creation came from and why he created it.
Because I never got the impression from those videos that he was morally grandstanding or that he was trying to pitch himself as superior to them morally. He never really tried to make himself seem like he was better than them. In fact, he would multiple times point out, like, his problems as well, and even give them advice on how they could have attacked him better in response, giving them ammo if they wanted to use against him.
That's why it was funny. That was part of the comedy. Is like, man, you're not even good at cutting people down. It was funny. He was good at it, right?
It all seemed very self-aware, not from like a moral grandstanding perspective, but just you were lending criticism in a goofy way to entertain your audience as well as provide legitimate points for why these people are doing bad things or have done bad things. For example, making a content comp on Leafy and bullying him the same way he'd bully the people in his videos, right? Like, that's not exactly the most cruel thing in the world.
No, but he knows where it was coming from. Yeah, I can see why people are having trouble with this take now. I love these faces that I keep pausing them on. Like, this is great, although it's just like... I love his face.
It's just making a point and making that point entertaining to your audience.
I am very insecure about my ability to create interesting content or like entertain. It's gotten better over the years, but it's something that I have struggled with constantly. And it's one of the reasons why I, kept making this hurtful content.
Because people liked it. It was funny.
As an excuse,
people laughed.
I hope that is
people followed.
Relatable to other creators who maybe struggle with the same thing.
Yeah, people are following, people are laughing, people are giving you subs. I get it. It's popular, and so you want to serve the content because it's like being on a TV show. Like, at what point do you leave the successful TV show because you're bored of playing that character versus how lucrative it is for you to continue to be on that TV show, right?
Now, this subject right here is something that extends beyond the iDubbbz situation. It's the insecurity, especially with a creator who's found a lot of success with one branch of content, that fearfulness to try other things because you don't know how to be perceived and you're a little worried about your ability to even deliver something that's not the norm that your audience is used to. That's a very honest look into that mentality, and you see it all the time on the platform with people that have found success in one niche and they never leave it.
This is what I was saying, yeah.
There's always that fear that if you do, you'll lose your audience or you'll just not be good at it. So most people live in the exact same style of content forever. And that's how I was for like the first 8 or 9 years of this channel, doing nothing but gameplay and commentary videos, spouting the word nipple and titty and cum as much as I possibly could within the first 2 minutes and throughout the rest of the video.
Yeah, that's about what your content used to be, which is why I was surprised at the quality of your videos lately. I remember what you used to be like, and my mod Ryan was telling me he likes your videos these days, and I was like, really?
But eventually, you do take a risk, and you try other things, and I always think that's the most fulfilling thing a creator can do, which is branch out from their niche. At least to try it, dip your toes in the deep end of that pool and give it a whirl.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
I was being very bigoted in a lot of my videos, and I justified it because, I didn't think it was too serious. And I thought that people were going to see that I had good intentions,
Satirical.
But that's so silly, Casual racism is still racism. Casual bigotry is still bigotry.
Yeah,
and, I said a lot of things that I look back at and I cringe now, and I'm like, that is an awful thing to say.
This I completely
Okay, so yeah, again, I'm going to chime in just before you here, is that what we're looking at is that he is looking at where he was coming from at the time and examining his motivations these days. And he's seeing that he wasn't coming from a good place. And it's not even just like, oh, I'm better than I was before and I was a bad person. It's recognizing how much you've changed and seeing that even though you might have felt like it wasn't coming from a bad place at the time, you now see how toxic you were being. And you didn't know that because legitimately you just did not see it. You were not in a place to recognize that about yourself, so you didn't see it. You missed it. And he's saying sorry for it.
Completely understand. That is totally normal to look back on that and cringe.
Yeah.
Right? In your 30s and really any age over
Yeah.
16, you're not exactly going to be getting a hearty ho 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 belly laugh just hearing a bunch of slurs being spammed.
Yeah,
Real
no,
life
not
is
really.
Call of Duty lobbies. I don't think many people in the real world are going to be like laughing and fist pumping hearing you just shout slurs as comedy. So that makes sense to look back on that and cringe.
Of course it does,
However,
of course it does.
None of your videos came from a place of hate. At least I don't think so. I don't think you were ever a racist.
And you don't have a place to say that, Moist. You don't have a place to say that to him when he is coming out. When iDubbbz is coming out and he's the one saying that's where it was coming from, you don't have a leg to stand on right now, my friend.
Or a bigot or anything like that. You used those words for shock humor. That was the whole
True.
goal. The edgy shock humor of using those
True.
words. And you made it pretty clear that that was kind of your drive. And he does mention it in this video with the it's either all okay or none of it's okay mentality. But I really think most people were able to recognize that the things he was saying weren't coming from a place of legitimate hate.
But now he is personally saying that he feels like he's changed enough to see that they were not coming from a good place. And whether or not you want to argue they were coming from some place of legitimate hate, which I never thought they were either, he's saying personally they were coming from a bad place.
Now, you can of course still say that it's unacceptable that he was using slurs for shock humor.
Of course it is.
Lines in his videos for the jokes. That's a totally fair perspective to have, but it's still, I think, a little.
Of course, I was born in the 80s and I lived through the 90s, and the things I was taught were funny in the 90s. So let me tell you, you have to forgive me sometimes for having to evolve past stuff too. Definitely for real. I've had to apologize a lot over time. That is growing. That's becoming a better person, you know? That's literally that. It's becoming a better person.
Ridiculous to make it seem like it was.
Which is not to say you have to apologize to be a better person, but you recognize the things that maybe you should apologize for and you do it. And that is part of.
This big of a deal that it warranted a whole apology video in which he makes it seem like he'll never truly find forgiveness and he'll never forgive himself for it, for saying the slurs in the videos.
Or maybe he's mad at himself, bro.
Because again, like, he's talking about it like he's a fucking reformed racist. Like he was actually a racist and now he's not.
Yeah, because he feels that bad about it, man. He sees where his motivations were coming from. I get it.
I don't think that was the case. He was an edgelord, and that's it.
He probably still
like this whole
is.
Video could have just been summed up very easily, like, "Hey guys, it was fucking 2016. I was edgy, and now I think it's cringy, so I don't want to do that anymore. And we're closing the book. That we're shutting that chapter down, putting the kibosh on it. Now we're doing some other stuff."
But he felt like he indoctrinated people, spread that way of thinking, and he doesn't want to be responsible for that, man. He doesn't want to be responsible for that. He doesn't want to be the prophet of edgelord, go be racist to people. He doesn't want to do that. Makes sense to me.
And that would have been a totally fine explanation. A lot of people would have still would have been disappointed, of course, in his audience that liked that content. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't feel like a prisoner to your audience. You should make what makes you happiest to create. Like, I don't think you should have felt obligated to make this video. Like, I don't think this situation was so damaging that it warranted this kind of, like...
Who said he was obligated? He wanted to. He felt bad.
Fucking presidential press conference here over it and apologizing for the content you made back
presidential.
then. You know, I don't think, like, you ruined lives because you made content.
No, but he changed people's points of view on stuff in a way that he now wishes he hadn't.
I don't think you made an entire generation of racists and bigots because you use slurs for shock humor. I think that's a very bastardized perspective of how people digest content online. Now, I have no doubt that his audience did cultivate some weirdo losers.
I see those, Crook.
Probably were real racists somewhere in there that didn't really care about his message and just.
Oh yeah, there were definitely real racists watching that, because if you crack even half a racist joke, all the real racists come running out of the woodwork to high-five you, and then you were just like, oh man, I didn't mean to do it, but it's too late. They're here now.
Liked that he was saying the N-word. I have no doubt that that existed in his community. But I don't think that was his goal, and there's always going to be weirdo losers. Of course, you can do your best to mitigate those people from feeling welcome in your community, but that all starts with just.
I hope they don't feel welcome in your community.
That's not a weak thing to do. That is not a weak or passive approach. The vilifying of your own audience and your previous content, I don't think is the right way of even looking at the content you used to make.
But he feels bad. Dude, oh man. You two have a very different point of view on how much you have influenced people.
Or the audience that you had. Of course there were bad actors in there, but not everyone was. And to make them feel like they were if they liked your content is a little weird. And I don't think that's the goal of this video by any means. But
no, he's not. Yeah, exactly. He's not trying to make people feel bad. He's saying, I legitimately think I was coming from an unhealthy place, and I'm sorry for sharing that point of view.
It does come across that way.
Nah.
Like, you weren't a bad person if you were laughing at his content cops or anything.
That's what I was just saying. I laughed at it. I didn't think I was a bad person, but if he feels like he was coming from a hateful place when he made those videos, that's fair to say on his part. He made them.
Like that. And I don't think he was a bad person for making those content cops in the first place.
I shouldn't be able to just make an apology video and walk away from it. This is something that I should live the rest of my life with, and I expect to. I've profited.
Oh, you put your face on it.
This bigoted content for years, and I've made a successful career out of it, and that's not right. I think that this is.
Well, I mean, is Howard Stern right? And I'm not trying to defend him here. I'm just asking, is being Howard Stern right? He's made some insane content over the years, and he's still quite popular. What about Joe Rogan? What about Alex Jones? This is content. People consume it. I mean, it's what you feel inside. And if he feels like he was coming from a hateful place, I really can identify with why he needs to apologize, you know?
Is only a step in the right direction, and I know that a lot more
and
needs to be
accountability
done to even approach a life that I would think would be like acceptable.
You don't deserve to be fucking publicly flogged with tomatoes thrown at you for the rest of your life and skinned alive because you made edgy videos in 2016, man.
Dude, he's apologizing. That's pushing it. Moist, you're pushing it.
It's just not that big of a deal. It feels horrible hearing this from him.
Have you ever felt guilty about something? Like, really, really guilty about something to the point where, like, you have told people who were barely involved in it about what happened and apologize for the smallest ripples of it that washed up on the shore of their life? That's what's going on right now. This guy is seeing the ripple effect of everything that he did, and he feels bad. That's what it is.
Him knowing that it weighs so heavily on his mind that he made these videos, so he feels like he's a real piece of shit for doing it. You just made edgy YouTube videos. You didn't ruin anybody's life.
No, but he feels... like I said, it's about what he did to people's minds and the fact that he knows he had young viewers. Impressionable viewers thinking, oh yeah, let's be like this guy. Let's be content cop, right?
You didn't create, a fucking army of racists and bigots. The content itself isn't bigoted content either. You used edgy shock humor. And I don't think that makes you a bigot that you're going to have to atone for those sins for the rest of your life over.
Well, I hope not.
I am running ads on this video, and any revenue generated from this video, I'm going to match and donate to an organization that would have been particularly affected by the type of
Oh, now I wish I was watching iDubbbz video.
And again, this isn't the end of what I'm doing. This is just the start.
You'll get no complaints from me here. I'm always on the side of helping people, so anything charitable, I'm always for.
Fair enough.
Though I don't think it was necessary or anything, I still think that's a nice gesture regardless. But he uses the word rhetoric here. And that again makes it sound like these videos were coming from like a legitimate racist, which I don't think they were. I really don't. At least I don't want to believe that iDubbbz used to be a racist and he was using that to try and, propel his beliefs forward.
I mean, like, I don't want to believe that either, but if iDubbbz is feeling like that's what his content did, I understand why he's apologizing.
He really it seems like he was really just using these words as shock humor, which is cringy, sure. Very cringy.
So yeah, this is why people are saying this is an L take here, because he's just not allowing for iDubbbz to actually have his own response to this. He's just putting himself into iDubbbz's shoes and being like, "Why'd you do this, bro?"
Absolutely fine to point out. But it doesn't strike me as something that was genuinely ruining people's lives hearing that kind of shit. It's just kind of like an eye-rolling thing to look back on now, like, ugh, that's fucking lame. And that's really it. I just don't think it goes too much deeper than that. Like I said, I have no doubt there really were some dangerous weirdos that did hold dangerous beliefs.
Of course. Yeah, that's what I was saying. That,
but I don't think
it pulls them out of the woodwork.
I think they
come running
when they found his content to begin with, and they stuck around because they just liked hearing the edgy words spoken out loud. That's it. I don't think he made them. He wasn't the Frankenstein to their monster. Now, I don't want to just keep dissecting every.
No, but he encouraged them.
Here. I want to kind of branch this out into a broader talking point about when a creator starts to resent the audience and community they've fostered. Because that's fundamentally what's happened here. iDubbbz has grown up now. He doesn't like what he made when he was younger, and he doesn't like the audience that he made along the way, along the journey. He mentions a couple of times in the videos, like, some of these eureka moments where he's like, man, this is really fucking frustrating the people that are in my audience. Well, he doesn't blatantly say that, but he tells a couple anecdotes.
Do you think iDubbbz was calling out his audience for sucking? Because it didn't sound like it to me. It sounded like he was apologizing to them for sharing points of view that he doesn't feel were healthy. That's what that sounded like to me.
It's about, going to conventions and meeting fans and it being kind of like this mirror held up to him that he didn't like the reflection of. And that's a very interesting and unfortunately pretty common thing to have happen online, where someone spends a long time building their brand. And
everyone hates the mirror.
And as they grow, they start to really resent the audience that they have. And usually this comes in one of two forms, where you have someone like DarkSidePhil. I've used him as an example.
God, we're gonna talk DSP now. We're gonna talk DSP. It's over. That guy is something else. You don't know who DarkSidePhil is. He's just crazy. He's like, yo, pay me $50 to wear this crappy brown vest or I ain't playing this video game. I swear to God. I will sit here and stare at the camera and not play a video game until you donate $50. I swear. I swear I'll do it. Oh, yeah, no one donating? Well, I'll just turn the stream off. I'll do it. Oh, it's an emergency. Pay me to put the vest on. DarkSidePhil.
But he has an audience that he doesn't seem to really like, but he needs them because they pay his bills. So he has to constantly keep doing the same things in order to keep the lights on.
Yep.
And I imagine he feels trapped by his viewers because he has to keep doing this song and dance in order to get the money from them, but doesn't like what he's doing. And it also happens to other creators as well who spend a long time building their identity online, but they don't like what they're doing and they don't like the people that are watching them. So then they try and make some kind of change and then get eaten alive by their community, which only further reinforces their disdain for them, which leads to...
Well, I mean, you are always going to get pushback when you change stuff. If you change your content type, it's an absolute joke to think there's not going to be some form of pushback unless it's just this glorious new revelation, you know what I mean?
To a really toxic community where everyone's at each other's throats. There's countless examples of that. Point is, that experience online is all too common. And when it does happen, a creator's left with a choice. They either just suck it up and
Suck
keep
it up.
making the shit that they clap for, even though it doesn't make them happy, and they
Well, that's
don't
if you want to
like
keep
the
creating.
audience that's clapping for them, or they try and change the content and grow a different kind of audience, which is
is a good
always the
call.
scarier option. That's always
Well, of course it's scary because you're established, but the reality is changing content type is the best way to grow too. It's the best way to grow because it expands your audience, and then you'll have new people who never knew that you play the other games who check that stuff out too, right?
the more uncertain one, because maybe no one likes it, and now you've lost that audience you've built up, and now your career's in jeopardy. You might not be able to keep the lights on by doing this career anymore, because now you've alienated them, gone in a different direction, and it hasn't worked out. So the majority of creators in this position just kind of suck it up, rub some dirt in it, and just keep doing the same shit over and over, even if it makes them miserable. And that's why you'll see a lot of creators burn out. So I'll always respect
Well, I mean, like, you shouldn't do something you hate in general.
the creators that choose the harder path here of pivoting and changing their content, doing what makes them happier, even if it means taking that huge risk of losing the audience you've built up over time. Even though I disagree with iDubbbz's perspective on
And I don't.
his older content being damaging or dangerous or indoctrinating, I still do
These are all the things that I said I thought he would be worried that it was, and then he said it was, you know?
respect that he didn't like what he was doing, so now he's doing something that he likes more. Even though it is
Exactly.
at the risk of losing his audience, he'll find happiness in the content that he makes going forward.
Yeah, there you go.
And maybe he's happier with the new audience that he potentially cultivates through all of it. So, but yeah, anyway, just kind of wanted to talk about this whole situation. That's about it. So, yeah. Yesterday,
Okay. So, I understand why people think that's a bit of an L take here. And that was what we were going to check out here next, is that now Moist is saying, oh, apparently this was an L take. Well, I know some people really like him, and he's a quite popular dude. Quite a lot of people follow him. But, I mean, I gotta say, sometimes I don't personally like his opinions. That last one that I heard, I think he wasn't empathizing at all with the situation. He wasn't connecting with what was happening. He was just looking at it from how he would look at it if it was him in that situation. But he doesn't have those feelings about his old content, right? Like, he doesn't feel like I was a bad person in my old content. Where clearly iDubbbz is having those feelings. And it's valid for him to have those feelings. Like, kind of, almost how dare you tell him he can't have those feelings? Like, who are you, the police of how iDubbbz feels about stuff?